Hi. For the next 1 hour and 15 minutes, myself and Ludger Kesting will give a demonstration of Tivian's Intelligent Experience Management platform. To set some context for the demo, we'll be talking about a company called People Company. People Company are a premium global retailer with retail stores across North and South America and all over Europe. Like many retail companies, People Company are experiencing a number of challenges. Their employees are having to adapt to new ways of working, with in-store workers accommodating new social distancing measures and more head office workers starting to work remotely. As a business, they're also experiencing high employee churn and are suffering from low engagement after the impacts of COVID-19. They're also experiencing changing customer behaviours, with less and less direct contact with their customers and a growing digital presence. And they are looking to increase their online purchasing. Also, like many retail organisations, they are starting to see customer loyalty decreasing worldwide. But People Company are quite a forward-looking company, and their HR department are looking to implement a full feedback landscape to help drive and improve employee experience and also customer experience. From an employee experience perspective, People Company have been running an annual engagement survey for a number of years now and plan to continue executing the annual engagement survey. However, the impacts of COVID-19 and the changes that have been experienced over the last 12 to 16 months have really highlighted to People Company that simply getting feedback from their employees once a year is not sufficient. So whilst they will continue with the annual engagement survey to provide a baseline against which to measure the impacts of various corporate improvement initiatives, they're also going to be augmenting this with regular pulse surveys. Every quarter, they will send a subset of their full engagement questionnaire to a subset of employees. They will harness the strong market research capabilities of Tivian's platform to be able to do sophisticated sampling and identify the appropriate subset of employees, but also ensure that specific employees are not being over-targeted with surveys and suffering from survey fatigue. However, the HR department also realise that whilst engagement may not change on a frequent basis, the sentiment of their employees could be changing almost daily. So they also want to move to a more continuous listening frequency. And to do this, they will be implementing Tivian's Vibes via the Microsoft Teams bot. Vibes are basically a weekly sentiment check-in, allowing the organisation to keep their finger on the pulse of how their employees are feeling. These three initiatives are all being managed centrally by the HR department. However, the HR team also want to empower managers and team leaders to run their own initiatives to improve employee working conditions and the customer experience. To support that, they were looking for some self-service tools of a consumer-grade experience that would allow team leaders and managers and store managers to be able to send on-demand surveys to their teams at a point in time that makes sense to them. They're also looking to implement one of Tivian's many point solutions, our 360 leadership offering. The results of the annual engagement survey have shown that there is a lack of confidence in leadership's ability to help the company weather the storms and impacts of COVID-19. So the HR team want to be able to provide a set of tools to their leaders and managers and aspiring leaders and managers that allow them to develop their own leadership skills. So the focus of my demonstration will be this employee experience feedback landscape, covering both the centralised and decentralised programmes, all of which can be supported within the one Tivian platform. We're able to support all of these different initiatives because we support different types of feedback. We support scheduled feedback, and that schedule could be based on a calendar like the annual or quarterly pulses, or the schedule might be based on specific employee events. For example, an employee joining the company or changing roles or leaving the organisation. We also support on-demand, so those guides that are the on-demand surveys that the individual managers or team leaders can send at any point in time. We also have always-on capability, and as we'll see when we come into the demonstration, People Company have an open door capability that allows employees to provide feedback 24/7. And we also need to do continuous listening. And in the People Company example, we will do this through this weekly sentiment check-in, what we call Vibes. So over the next 40 minutes, I will demo Tivian's intelligent employee experience management capabilities. We'll look at how People Company can establish a company-wide engagement baseline, how they can move to more continuous listening with those quarterly pulses and weekly check-ins, but also very critically, how they can harness the insights of their employees by implementing an ideation workflow. So for the next 40 minutes, I will demo Tivian's intelligent employee experience management capabilities. We'll see how People Company can establish a company-wide engagement baseline, how they can move to more continuous listening with quarterly pulses and weekly sentiment check-ins, but also very critically, how they can harness the insights of their employees through ideation and collaboration to ensure that they're really implementing the right improvement initiatives. So what you can see here is the login to our employee intelligence portal. This is a single point of entry for managers and employees to be able to access all of the relevant tools and feedback initiatives that form part of People Company's holistic landscape. Typically, we would have different personas logging into the portal with access to different parts of the system. But in the interest of time, I'll be logging in as one persona that has access to all the different components. And then I will just talk you through the different personas and the type of access they would typically be given. The portals themselves can be fully branded with the corporate identity. We can change all of the language to match the organization's specific language. The portals can be multilingual and, of course, can be accessed on mobile devices. So for those retail store managers within People Company, they can be on the go and still access all of this capability from their mobile phone. When we first log into the solution, we're brought to the homepage. The purpose of the homepage is really to orient the user so that they understand what the solution will offer to them and their own role in these experience management feedback initiatives. So we can see across the top just some basic instructions outlining to the individual that we've got a standardized methodology, but also for our customers, we can implement their own custom engagement methodology if they so choose. It also lets me know that I've got intuitive dashboards and reporting to be able to analyze and review the results of the different surveys that we're sending to employees. And most critically, as part of any feedback program, the most important part is that we actually take action and impact change for the organization. And all of these components are available within the portal that we're looking at now. As we scroll down, you can see another area where the employee themselves, so this would be available to all employees logging into the portal, have a number of ways that they can provide their feedback and their insights to the organisation. We can have what we call discussion forums. So perhaps as a result of the annual engagement survey, if there was a specific topic that was identified as being an issue across many parts of the organisation, People Company can invite a selected number of employees to come into a discussion group and chat and ideate on ways that we might improve within the business. And then we have the surveys that the employee complete. So we can have an annual engagement survey, as you can see here, but also the quarterly pulses at the point in time that they would be initiated would also be available from this part of the portal. We also support what we call continuous listening or always on. So in this particular example, People Company have an open door policy, which means that 24/7 employees can come in and provide feedback on specific topics that the organisation are inviting them to share their thoughts on. So we'll take a look at the annual engagement survey. As I mentioned, this can be completed on any device and is typically a simple survey that's easy to complete for all employees. In this particular example, the first step is to ask the employee to identify which part of the organisation they work within. Many of our customers will have an HR management system integration that will pre-populate this information behind the scenes so that we do not need to ask the employee to self-identify. And next, we've got a simple set of questions for the different drivers that impact engagement and productivity of the employees. As we can see, this is very simple and quick for the employee to complete. However, the survey module itself is a very complex and sophisticated module, and when used in the customer experience and market research context, there's often a lot of logic built into the survey workflow. We can use this for employee experience as well. So for example, depending on how the employee answers a specific question, we might divert them to a different subset of questions. We can also do things like real-time text analytics within the survey itself. So if we have an open text question that the employee completes, we can do real-time sentiment analysis And if we conclude that that comment is a negative comment, we may ask a different set of follow-up questions than we would ask if that comment was a positive comment. So once all of the employees have completed the surveys, the next step in this workflow is to analyse the results and distribute them to all of the leaders and managers across the business who potentially or hopefully would be sharing those results with their own teams. We have 3 different ways that we can share the results of the feedback initiatives with the managers and leaders. One is through interactive dashboards, which is the first thing that we'll show here. We have a deep integration with Tableau, which is one of the market-leading BI tools. The platform itself has an inbuilt ETL that allows us to fully automate this process. One of the benefits of having that deep integration with Tableau is it provides us with the flexibility to build very bespoke and custom dashboards for those customers that have that type of requirement. We do also, of course, have out-of-the-box templated dashboards built with Tableau that we can provide for customers that want a lower price point to deliver those results. The second way that we can deliver the results of these feedbacks initiatives is through our native dashboarding, which will be released in our upcoming release on June 21st. This native dashboarding is much more templated and supports very, very high concurrency. So we can distribute those results to tens of thousands of managers who could all go in at the same point in time and very quickly see those results. As we say, they're templated, and then there are specific configuration options available to the company, such as the theming, whether they want to see averages, whether they want to see trend analysis and so on. But they are fixed in terms of a best practice look and feel and design. And then the third way that we can distribute results are by generating PDF and PowerPoint reports. And these can be, again, mass generated for tens of thousands of managers with their own individual results and automatically pushed out onto the portal so that the managers can come in and potentially print out those reports. And we have many customers that will use both the interactive dashboards and the PowerPoint or PDF reports. So let's take a look at those. We'll go first into the Tableau dashboards. And what we'll show you here is the typical type of dashboard or visualization that we would present to a manager, and then some additional dashboards that we would show to HR or leaders and executives within People Company. So what we see first is a more typical manager dashboard. It's quite simple. We're basically trying to remove the complexity and highlight to the manager the key areas that they should be focusing on. For many managers, it can be quite daunting the first time they get their engagement results. Often those engagement surveys have a high number of questions. And if there are lots of areas with low scoring questions, it might be difficult for them to identify which are the key areas they should be focusing on. So we can do key driver or regression analysis to identify those specific areas that, should they be improved, would have the most dramatic effect on the overall engagement of the team and ultimately their productivity. So I can see here my predictive engagement score. So predictive engagement is a Tivian engagement metric. It measures the typical head, heart, hands, but also looks at the alignment and enablement and incorporates that into the overall KPI. I can see the trend analysis over time. So for my annual engagement over the last 5 years, I can see that thankfully the engagement is increasing for my team. And then, as I mentioned, we have key driver analysis. So it's identified the 4 key areas that would have the most dramatic impact on the engagement of my team. And sometimes those are not particularly low scoring areas. If I hover over the action button here, you can see that we can embed best practice recommendations on how to improve in those areas. And these can be recommendations that are written by our own subject matter experts or by the company themselves. So if I were to click that button now, it would very quickly create an action and add it into the action planner, which we'll take a look at a bit later on in the demonstration. I can then come in and look at the individual questions that comprise that predictive engagement KPI. And obviously, if the company has their own engagement methodology, this would be their questions that comprise their engagement KPI. So here we have that head, heart, hands, plus the enablement and alignment that I talked about. And then as a manager, even though I've got that key driver analysis, it's identifying to me the key areas I should be working on with my team, I can still come in and drill down into all of those drivers of engagement, so things like inclusion, leadership, meaningful work, and I can see the results for every question, and we can have those best practice recommendations even right down to the individual question level. So that's typically the manager view. Then the execs or HR department would have additional dashboards available to them. Obviously, they would be looking for the data either across the organization as a whole or their part of the business. And typically we might have, for a global company like People Company, a map that would just very quickly allow them to pinpoint those pockets of high predictive engagement and low predictive engagement. So I can see very quickly in the UAE, we have quite a low predictive engagement score compared to in Australia, where we've got quite a high predictive engagement score. And this allows us to, even down to the individual store level, identify those stores with high engagement and those with low. And it means that we can reach out to those store managers and try and work out what it is that they're doing in their store that's impacting those engagement levels, and introduce the same measures in those stores that perhaps have a slightly lower engagement. And then typically HR and execs would also have a demographics view where they can start to slice and dice the data to see if there are different levels of engagement based on things like the function the person works in, their gender, how long they've been with the organization, and the customer can dictate to us which demographics they want to be able to slice and dice the data on. So here, when I'm looking at this by function, I can see very quickly that the HR department have some fairly serious concerns about the well-being of employees within the business. So that's something that we could look to address. The other thing that we can do also in terms of analysing the results of the survey is take those free text comments. So we talked about doing sentiment analysis real time inside the survey as the employee is completing the survey. But what we can also do is take all of those comments once the survey field phase has ended and do more complex text analysis to help uncover the trends and the themes that employees are talking about. So this is where we can use machine learning and artificial intelligence to actually read those comments and classify them in terms of the underlying theme or motivation of that comment. So here we see a typical manager view. I can see that I've got 55 comments from all of the people in my part of the organization. I can see the top themes by level of engagement. So what this is showing me is that the people in my team that are most engaged are talking about work environment, benefits and compensation. And those that are least engaged are talking about compensation, amazing learning opportunities, so sometimes it can still be positives, and also benefits. And then as we scroll down, we can see the top 10 trending themes. And again, the breakdown in terms of whether the employee is engaged or less engaged. And if we click on one of these, we can drill into those specific comments. So it's very quick and easy for me to quickly read all of those comments that pertain to benefits. And then that might inform decisions going forward that People Company might want to change the benefit structure for their employees. And then we have an executive view, again, very similar to the manager view, but obviously looking at all of the comments for the entire organization. So we've got over 1,000 comments from all of the people within People Company. Same concepts with the top themes and trending themes, but we also have a couple of additional dashboards where we can look at things like the demographics. So we might, again, look at this by things like gender or function. So here we can see, for example, that more males are talking about compensation in their comments than females. We're also just about to release a new infographic dashboard that will allow us to click on a specific theme and then see all of the important information about that theme. So how many people made comments related to that theme? Where did it rank? What was the gender split of the people that talked about that theme, other demographic splits and the like? And that will be a printable poster infographic that can then be put up in the actual stores themselves or in head office. So those are the Tableau dashboards. The other way that we can distribute the results that we talked about was this mass generation of PowerPoint or PDF reports. So we have specific plugins into those technologies that allow us to design very custom and tailored branded reports that we can mass generate, tens of thousands of these reports, and all of the data is unique to each manager. So if I open up one of these, you'll see a very different look and feel in terms of branding, just to showcase the flexibility of this module. So here we can see we're looking at our 2021 results. Typically, these are more narrative, these types of reports, so we can actually walk the manager through why engagement is important, how we're measuring it, whether that be our methodology or the customers. And then we can do things like benchmarking against high-performing teams, next level in the organisation. And we've got a lot of flexibility, as you can see here, in terms of how we visualise and showcase those results to the manager. So once we've distributed those results, the managers have hopefully had a session with their teams. They've walked them through the results. What we want to do as an organisation is work out how we can improve things. And often there will be corporate-led initiatives based on the aggregate results of that annual engagement or quarterly pulse results. But what we also want to do, and what lots of companies are starting to do, is really empower the employee to become the change agent within the business. So sometimes those corporate-led initiatives, it's hard to win over the hearts and minds of the employees. But if the employees feel that they're driving the change and that it's their voice and their ideas that are implemented, they're more likely to get behind them, and it's more likely to have an impact. So what we've built into our solution is a ideation workflow that allows the people company to ask their employees what they think should be done to improve. So to do that, we go into the get feedback area, and here we have what we call our guide. So these are self-service surveys or workflows that we make available to typically all of the managers within people company, to allow them to capture feedback at a point in time that's appropriate for them. And one of those guide types is what we call an ideation guide, and this is the one we can see here on the left. So what we can do here, either for the organisation as a whole, but more typically for individual teams, is once we've got those results, let's say I'm a manager and my team identified that we don't collaborate very well with other parts of the organisation, we could discuss that and say, okay, let's work out how we're going to improve collaboration. And we'll use this guide to help inform or guide that discussion. So I can start my guide, we can embed videos, links to documentation to explain to the manager how this guide operates. It tells me here how it's going to work. I'll quickly go over that. And what the manager would do is simply select an area they want the team to ideate on and to suggest improvements about. And we already discussed that would be fostering collaboration. I would then invite my team, so I can either just pick individually, or if the teams have already been set up, and again, we can pull in data from the HRIS system to do that. I can invite my team. I can maybe put a quick message in to say, hey, based on the meeting we had yesterday, let's start to explore some ideas and ways that we can foster collaboration. I won't go through the full workflow in the interest of time, but what would happen if I sent this is that every member of that team would receive a survey where they're asked to suggest up to 3 initiatives or ideas that can help with collaboration across the business. Once they all submit their surveys or that time frame ends, we use text analytics to help the manager or the initiator of the process to identify those ideas that are similar so that they can rationalize that to a shortened list. And then a second automated survey goes out to the same team, asking them to vote for their top 3 initiatives. So they would pick the top 3 that they would like to see put into action. And then the system will aggregate those results, identify those with the top scores, and it will automatically create actions inside our action planner so that the team can then implement those changes. So if I go into my view status, we actually ran that process earlier for fostering collaboration. So just to quickly show you what the results might look like. Here, as the manager that initiated that ideation process, I can see that I invited 7 people, 2 people suggested actions, 1 person voted. We had 6 actions in total. And I can see the top voted. And I can see here, actually, we merged, based on that text analytics, 2 suggestions that were actually very similar. I can also see that as the instigator of this process, I actually took a 4th initiative and manually added it to my action board. And I could do that for any remaining suggestions that have not been already put over to the action board. So let's move now over to that action board. So this is really the heart of where we manage those change initiatives that we've put in place, either at the corporate level or at the individual team or organizational unit level. And we've seen that there's a number of ways that these actions can come into the improvement board. We can be looking at the results through those interactive dashboards and simply clicking a button to have a best practice recommendation of how we can improve automatically populated into the improvement board. We'll be adding the same capability to the text analytics dashboards that you just saw. It might be that these initiatives came in through that ideation process, and you can see an example of that here because we've got this vote, so I can tell that this came in via the ideation. Or I can simply just click create a new action and manually put one in. So maybe in the course of discussion with the team, we've just ideated as a group in person, we've come up with an idea and we want to put that into the improvement board. We can share these initiatives with other people. So that's not just our own teams, but maybe we're bringing in SMEs from other parts of the business to help us put this improvement in place. I can change who's responsible for this, And as a manager, we would recommend that you make someone on your team responsible, again, empowering that individual to become a real change agent for the business. We can do things like assign due dates. So we've got reminders. You can upload attachments, files, documents, put in comments. So it's really a one-stop shop where we can collaborate on this improvement initiative. And once that's in place, we can just do simple drag and drop to move it into ongoing. Once we've impacted that change, so that behaviour is in place, that process is in place, we can move it over to review, and you'll see this star here, which is inviting everybody that was involved in this initiative, so the team and anybody else that was invited, to provide an impact rating. So did this actually improve, if we stay with our theme of fostering collaboration, did this improve collaboration across the business? And everyone gets to rate this. We aggregate that score. And what we've planned to do longer term using machine learning is actually take those scores to inform the types of recommendations that we actually surface within those dashboards. So at the moment, we have a simple rules-based engine. So based on the particular question or construct, we surface specific recommendations. But longer term, we'd like to then look at the impact analysis of that recommendation. And if it was quite low, surface a different recommendation and see if that gets a higher impact rating. So let's say we've put those initiatives in place, we've done that basic impact analysis, but maybe as a manager, I actually want to get a bit more granular insight about that particular area that we were trying to improve. Again, I can do that using those guides. So we have that ideation guide that we've seen, but we also have simpler types of guides that are a simple survey, typically with just a small number of questions, although it can be more extensive than that, that we can push out to the team at any point in time. So let's say maybe in my results, I saw that there was concern about my leadership style. I've run a leadership 360, which we'll look at the end of the demo. I've changed my behaviours, or at least I think I have, and maybe I want to just send a very short survey back out to the team to see if those changes have made an impact on their perception of my leadership abilities. So we could again just start the guide. I won't go through the full process. It's the same as the one we saw, but we start the guide, we pick the people that we want to provide feedback, put a little message, and then they get that survey. And then I can very quickly come in and see the results of that. And the nice thing about these tools is it supports that decentralized approach to feedback initiatives, so that HR have some control over the templates of the surveys and the types of questions that they're allowing managers to ask their team members or other people across the business, but they don't have that administrative burden of being the people responsible for sending the surveys. The managers can do that themselves. They don't really need any training. It's very simple and easy to use. And then they get those results at their fingertips, and they can continue to make that grounds up localized improvement initiatives for their team or part of the business. So lastly, before we move over to a different product in our portfolio set, one of the things that is very important for HR as we start to roll out these self-service tools is to have some visibility of how well they're being adopted across the business, and also some sort of control over the usage. So we've got this area inside the solution that typically is only available to HR or execs, where they can come in and for each of those guides, so for each of those templated surveys, including that ideation workflow, I can see over time how well they're being adopted across the business. And this can be very informative for me as someone who works within HR, because if I see that a huge proportion of the managers are sending out the same surveys on a particular topic, it might be that that's an area that we need to address more holistically across the business, and that could inform how we spend our budget on learning and development and the like. So, for example, I can see quite a lot of managers have sent the health and well-being for remote workers, something that's very topical at the moment. As an HR person, I can come in and see which managers have used that survey, how many times, and I can drill right through and get some information about who they're sending it to and what those response rates were. And this is an area of the platform that we will be continuing to develop to allow HR even more oversight and control over these decentralized processes. So we've talked a lot about that sort of annual engagement program and that full feedback impact cycle. So we send the surveys, we analyze the results, we do key driver analysis, we surface to the manager those areas that they should really be focusing on, and then we provide them with that best practice advice to guide them through that improvement process, but we also give them tools to actually go back out to their employees and let those employees impact the changes that are needed. And the quarterly pulses really works in a very similar way. It's just that we increase the cadence. Due to our market research legacy within the platform, we have very sophisticated sampling capabilities that mean that we can sample subsets of people, companies, organization. We can send out subsets of that engagement question, and we can have rules in place to make sure that people aren't over-surveyed and suffer from survey fatigue. But it really is, in essence, the same capability that we've showcased so far. But what I want to move over to now is our Microsoft Teams bot. So we talked about people company wanting to also really keep finger on the pulse of the organization and understand how the sentiment of the organization is changing over time much more frequently than those quarterly pulses would allow. And to do that, they want to go where their employees are working day to day. They use Microsoft Teams within the business. So we've developed a bot that's free to install within Microsoft Teams within your team. And the way that QB works is every Friday, it will send out a very simple chat to all of the people in your team just to ask them how their week has been. If it was a good week or a bad week, why was that? And what could we do to improve? You'll see here it says QB Dev. I'm in a development environment at the moment, just so that I can show the latest version that's about to be released on the store. But there is a version there now that you can download today. So as I say, the way this would typically work on a Friday, obviously it's not Friday today, but I would typically get a little chat from QB. So QB would appear the same as any other employee within the organization. And I can simply click to say, have I had a good week or a bad week? This would then send a follow-up question that would say, it's good to hear you've had a good week. Why was that? And I might say, well, actually, leadership's been very supportive. I've got a good workload and I really like working with my team. Now, I didn't say that I had an excellent week. I just said I had a good week. So we would typically ask a follow-on question to say, well, what stopped the week being fabulous? And what could we do to improve? And I might say, well, actually, it would be good to get more training on Python, because that's something that I'm working with at the moment. So once that survey has gone out to everybody on the team on Friday, the following Tuesday, when they come into their Teams channel, they'll actually see a post from QB that gives them all of the results for not only that Vibe survey, so we call that weekly sentiment check-in a Vibe, but any additional surveys that people within their team might have sent out. So in addition to that weekly cadence, much like the guides that we saw within our engagement portal, we also have the option within the QB bot to on-demand send out templated surveys. And for this particular team, I can see that an engagement survey was sent, an inspirational leadership survey was sent, and then again we have that Vibe every Friday, so I can see how I responded to that, and I can drill into the view details to start to get a little bit more information. Because this is a dev environment, we don't have a huge amount of data, but this is what the results would look like for the team's Vibe. So over the course of the number of weeks that we've been sending the survey out, I can see that distribution across the team, how they've responded to the survey. I can look at things like average participation rate. I can come in and see the details of why people had a good week or a bad week. And I can start to look at the comments that people have put in on the different weeks. And similarly, if we were using those on-demand surveys, so for example, employee engagement is a templated survey we can send within the Teams bot, I can drill into those results as well. Administrators of the bot will have this additional area called surveys, and this is where they can manage those on-demand and weekly cadenced surveys. So we can see here we've got the different frequencies, and I can actually create my own custom templated surveys as an administrator, and then anyone who has Teams or has QB, within their team will have the ability to send those surveys. And the last thing I want to show in my demonstration are the native dashboards that we talked about a bit earlier in the presentation. And we'll showcase those in the context of our point solution, Leadership 360. So as we discussed, people company have seen in those annual engagement results that there's a lack of confidence in the leaders within the business. So what HR have done is made available to all of their leaders and aspiring leaders a self-service tool that will allow them to improve those leadership skills. And what we're looking at now are the results of a 360 evaluation. We won't go through the full offering today, but the way that the 360 works is that the individual manager at any point in time can log into the offering and can identify that those people that they would like to provide feedback around their leadership skills. And that would typically include their manager, their peers, their team, and can also include customers, partners, and we can have up to 8 different types of what we call rater groups, so types of people that are providing feedback around how demonstrable my leadership skills are. All of those people will provide that feedback. I will also provide a self-assessment to identify the strengths and development areas as I perceive them. And really the key focus or point of the 360 solution is to help raise the self-awareness of the individual leaders or aspiring leaders. If we can identify what we call hidden strengths and blind spots, so those areas where I'm less self-aware, we can help them develop those critical leadership skills. So we can see here from this dashboard, so this is, as I said, a templated dashboard, and as part of the release on June 21st, we'll support 3 different types of templates. We will have what we call a single category template that will be used most typically with the guides that we saw earlier for simple templated surveys that have a small number of questions around a particular topic. So that might be a follow-on survey to send out after the engagement results come out, for example, around something like fostering collaboration. We'll also have a multi-category template as well, as the name suggests, that will be used to show the results of surveys that have a number of different categories or constructs within them. So an example of that might be a team performance questionnaire that might have questions around the different drivers of team performance. And then the third template type that we will support is what we're seeing now, which is our leadership results. So as a manager, I can come in, I can see that there's an area to view my strengths, my development areas. I can see any comments people have provided as they've filled in that evaluation about me, and I can see some overall response rate data. So let's go into the strengths area. And here we can see both our known strengths. So these are strengths that we perceive that that we demonstrate these leadership skills, and those that work with us would agree. But more important are what we call our hidden strengths. And this is an area where I perceive that I'm not particularly strong in terms of that leadership strength or behaviour, but actually those that get to witness me in the workplace would actually say that it is a strength for me. And we have a similar concept when we look at development areas, that we can identify those development areas where the people that work with me would agree that I need to work on that particular area, and I have that level of self-awareness to perceive that already. And those blind spots. And blind spots are really important, because this is where I, as a leader, feel I do demonstrate those leadership skills, but actually those that work with me would disagree. And if I can realise that, I can either work on those areas or potentially just bring other people in from the business that have those strengths instead. And then finally, I'll just quickly show you the results by rater group. This is a holistic overview of the feedback from all of my rater groups. We can support up to 8 different types of rater groups in this particular demo portal. You can see we've just got 3, my manager, my colleagues and my team. And I can very quickly see at a glance that my manager has actually rated me fairly low on some critical leadership skills here. So I can look at these results in absolute terms, or I can look at them relative to my own self-rating. So again, this is more around that self-awareness and the disparity between my own perception of my abilities and those that work with me. So I can see, for example, there are some very big gaps between how I perceive, for example, my innovative thinking. I've rated myself very high on that. My manager, there's a significant difference. So this might be something that I want to speak to my manager about, and to understand why they don't think I demonstrate innovative thinking. These templated native dashboards, as I say, will be available from June 21st. They take just a couple of minutes to configure and set up. So for organisations like People Company that are becoming very self-sufficient on the Tivian platform, they, in the space of a couple of hours, will be able to come in, create a survey based on either their own methodology, or we can provide the question sets to them. They can make those surveys available as those templated guides through the employee experience portal, and then they can simply configure the particular type of template or visualization that they would like to make available to the manager. And this native dashboarding has been built specifically to cope with very, very high concurrency. So we could have tens of thousands of managers all coming in and accessing the results at the same point in time. And it also supports some real-time use cases. So for example, you might have a templated survey collecting feedback from an audience at an event. And as you're viewing those results, and as those people at the event are providing feedback and comments, we can stream those comments real time into the dashboard visualization. So we've covered everything from the employee experience perspective that we wanted to show today. We've seen how People Company can run those annual engagement surveys, how they can analyse and distribute the results, how they can involve the employees in those change initiatives to improve the employee experience. And we can use that same ideation workflow to get insights from employees on how to improve the customer experience. That those are the people on the coalface speaking to the customers and typically have the most insight and the best ideas on how we can improve the customer experience as well. But I'm just going to go back now to the presentation, and Ludger will walk through the customer experience and market research part of People Company's overall landscape, and then move into a demonstration of those parts of the system.
Perfect. Thank you, Nicola. Yes, now we will focus on the customer experience program that People Company runs. And customer experience programs are often seen from two different viewing angles. So there's often a relational survey set up that measures how the brand is perceived, how the customer sees the company overall, if he or she would recommend the company. And there is a transactional view on the experience with the company, with the different processes the customers are involved, like a shopping experience, online shopping, for example, different steps in the process, and of course, in-store shopping if you find the products that you're looking for, and if you get good advice. And those are a bit two different things that you understand essentially how the company is perceived and if the processes work that the company puts in place to give the customer good experience. And People Company, especially as a retail company, does both and sees it as very important. So we will have a look at this. And in addition, People Company launched a new product line for outdoor products. In these times, outdoor hiking got more interesting for a larger target group, and they launched a research panel to learn a little bit more in detail for specific target groups, what products they like, and if they would like the new products that a People Company brings to market. Okay, and yeah, so I will, in the next 30 minutes, show you first a little bit of how customer experience actually connects also to employee experience. And then we will go deeper into the details of relational surveys, transactional surveys, customer journey mapping, and have a look of how this is visualized in dashboards to drive decisions. That I will share my screen. Do you see my screen?
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, let's first connect to the presentation from Nicola and see how People Company connects employee experience with the customer experience measurements they run. And let's focus here first on the relational survey. So they have a relational survey in place, meaning they ask if people would recommend People Company as your company to go shopping and to buy products. And we have here a dashboard where we use this data. In addition, we use the employee experience data and also operational data, especially about churn in this case, because retail is often struggling with that, and especially in these days, and that's a challenge for People Company. And here on this dashboard, this data was brought together. And this gives us much deeper insights into these different data points than just analyzing data separately. So we have here the purple line that is the employee experience data, so engagement in this case. We see its top percentage here of positive answers, and we see that it's starting relatively positive, and then it drops over time a little bit. Only 43% of the employees are engaged. So there might be something happening. There might be the COVID crisis. There might be something else, some changes in the company that leads to this result. And we see that the customer experience that is here in this green color follows with a little bit delay. That might make sense because not engaged customers might not provide the best service in stores, might not give the best result or services online in chats or something like that. And we see this here that the customer experience follows, and also customers are less happy, would not recommend People Company that much anymore, which of course will have a direct impact on finances. And we also see operational data that comes from the people companies, operational CRM systems, for example, that is joined here, which is the churn. So how many, what percentage of people might leave. And we see here that this increases a little bit. And that also makes sense. Less engaged employees might switch to a new employer and leave the company. And that's, of course, also has a financial impact for people company. So obviously, people company does here some changes. We see the customer experience and the employee experience going up over time. And we have here then even more positive results than we had before.
And to send an on-demand survey, it's very simple. We won't do that today in the interest of time, but I just come into my Teams channel, have a conversation with QB and say that I want to launch a survey, and then QB will have a chat with me to identify what type of survey I want to send and to provide some basic information about that survey. So how long it will take my team to complete,
are unhappy,
what questions comprise the survey, and then I can quickly send it out. And again, as we're seeing, we'll see those results the following Tuesday as part of that overall results that get pushed out to the team.
Employees. Yeah, and below we also see the Net Promoter Score, of course, always a traditional measurement that can be used for analytics. And how does this data flow together? We can have a look at this in a more technical dashboard to describe the technology that is in place here. Here we see that people company in this case, let's give this a second. Here in the dashboard, we see the feedback landscape that people company has implemented. We see here the enterprise feedback suite, and they have engagement surveys. They do pulse surveys and team performance surveys, as Nicola showed. We see that they do these in different quarters, and this creates different data points that we can merge in the background and visualize in the dashboards combined. And they also run a branch customer survey. Actually, this is done with a different kind of technology. That's an example that shows that we can, of course, integrate also data from other providers. But of course, ideally, people company would utilize everything in one tool. Then you have the benefits that the data is directly merged. And we also saw the MS Teams bot in the previous demo with the vibes that go out every Friday. And here we have, of course, a lot of those. They go out all the time. And this data can also be combined and then creates a joint experience management or engagement score that can be visualized and analyzed in detail. Okay, this is how the data flows together. And let's have a closer look at the customer experience part. So I switch to a customer experience portal. This is just utilized to show different kinds of technologies. And we split it in these 3 steps so that we engage customers. And this can be, of course, done in different ways. This can be done on the website. This can be done by email, by SMS, or through other channels, wherever your customers are active. Of course, also in store with the tablet or with the QR code or a near field communication device to start feedback processes on your phone. That is, of course, important to understand. We saw already the combined dashboard, but of course, there are deeper analytics for customer experience only necessary as well. So we will have a look at this. And ideally, you act on the insights. So you want to improve potentially the customer journey. People company is implementing a bigger web store, for example, and they need to understand the different steps, why people do not buy, where do they stop, why do they put products into their shopping basket and don't check out, and need to understand the workflows. So let's have a look at these different steps. We go to the example of automated and relational feedback. So here we have an example of how this can work. So we have some kind of trigger event normally in the first case. Then we send out a survey and we do the reporting to drive our decision. And people company utilizes here these 2 kind of surveys. First, a relational survey that is sent out every quarter, every half year, or less or more often, that measures essentially how the customer perceives people company as a brand, as a company. So how do I feel about the company? How do I feel about the services and products they sell? Would I recommend people company as a company to shop in and at? And this is a traditional Net Promoter Score. I can work with open comments as Nicolas also shown in the case of employee experience. And the other survey type they run is a point of sales survey. So this is one touch point in a bigger customer journey. Of course, they want to expand this to more touch points in the customer journey to get a holistic view on how the customers experience, the customer journey as a whole. But let's have a look at the point of sale survey. And here we have areas about welcome in the store, about store atmosphere, and of course, people, companies on the way to also apply this to their online store. And let's say the assortment is great, advice was given, that's okay. And in the background, the Enterprise Feedback Suite survey tool has trigger functionalities that can live connect and see the data and create events or tasks and alerts out of this. So what we have set up here is that a low net promoter score leads to a task that is created. And I think also the rating of a low atmosphere in the store will create a task, because people company has put a lot of money into this, and now they want to see how this is perceived. So let's continue like this. In the background, this was now executed, and we will see in a moment that a task is created for me. So let's switch a little bit personas, not from participant point of view anymore. I will have a look at what is happening behind the scenes. So we have here a module that's called closed loop feedback, where the alerts and tasks are stored. I could have also just have simple hot alerts that go to my smartphone or to the smartphone and inbox of an account manager for a responsible person for the stores. But let's have a closer look at the different tasks that are created. So I see here a few tasks. Let's sort this here differently. Sorry, this is in German. Are you still there? Hello?
Yeah, sorry, I was muted.
Okay, no problem. Why the heck is this in German? And why can't I go to my profile?
Everything else is in English, though. The left-hand nav's in English.
Huh. I guess everything will. Why is that? Let's quickly see if I have another user. Sorry, give me a second. Wow. Okay. So yeah, let's start here with the hot alerts again.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, now I'm switching personas, and I'm now an employee, a manager at people company who wants to review the alerts and see what tasks, what I might have to handle to create a better customer experience. And first of all, we have here hot alerts. This is essentially a way to send directly a message to an inbox of a specific person, of a responsible person, to maybe contact a customer directly to understand if there is an issue and to act on it quickly. If it's, for example, a very high value product and I need to contact a customer directly. But we also have something that's called closed loop feedback, the area where the tasks and tickets are created from one or multiple surveys. And let's have a look at this. We see here already some older tickets, and let's sort this differently to see if there are new tasks created. And here we see the ones that originate from the survey that I just took as a persona of a participant. So we see here the atmosphere in the store was rated low. That's bad for people company because they invested a lot and we have a low net promoter score, which is of course always a bad sign, as we know that net promoter score is always connected with really financial outcomes. Behind this is an organizational structure. So I'm assigned to a specific unit, a specific area of responsibility, and that's why I see these tasks. Other people might see other areas and other tasks. So let's have a look at the low net promoter score. I can quickly review the survey here. I see a printout. Of course, I cannot change this here. I just see, hey, this person was not really happy with the atmosphere and gave a really negative net promoter score. No comment, unfortunately, so I don't know exactly what was wrong, but I can assign this now to me. I can open and edit the task. I can set a due date similar to the setup in the employee experience that Nicola has just shown. I see that this is set to a specific organizational unit, and I might be able to assign this somewhere else. I can now work with status codes, maybe assign another person, put in a scope that's maybe cross-location, a problem here, and put in the description, upload a file, and act on this. And if I have the contact information, maybe even call the customer up or discuss with the store manager what might be wrong. Okay, back to the act area, and again, switching a little bit the personas. It's of course possible also then for a team leader of a person that handles the tasks, monitor these. And for that, we have a task monitoring dashboard where I can, as a responsible person, go in and see, hey, how many maybe unsatisfied customers do we have? Where do these events happen? Do we have to double check our customer journey? And where do we have to do this? And then I have here the different areas of the stores. We see that in atmosphere that creates the most tasks and tickets. Obviously, that's something we have to look at. And we can also differently split this by person who is assigned to this action. So you'll see Ludger has 9 tasks and Johan has 5 tasks, and I can review all the tasks across the organizational structure in detail. Okay, this is a little bit the transactional view on surveys and how to act on this. But on a more holistic view, we can of course also have a look at the data from the more relational survey and see the results also for the different areas in a touch point. So let's go to the understand area. We have a different kind of analytics for customer journey, text analytics, driver, even what drives, for example, net promoter score. But let's have a look at a larger customer satisfaction dashboard that is split into different areas. First of all, we start with the high-level infographics. That's a way to communicate the data, for example, for management, for stakeholders who don't want or cannot go into too much detail. And here we see the net promoter score, of course, as one measurement. We see a trend to the previous period, to the first, in this case, to the previous month. And we also see the different areas in the survey that you have also seen. So the advice area, touch and feel, assortment, the welcome, and the atmosphere here, as our candidate has a low scoring. And this can even give then management a quick look at the data and provide some initial information. If we want to go deeper, we have this dashboard is split into different personas. For example, here a country management view for the United States in this case. So people company has different stores, and we see red is negative feedback, blue is positive, and I can work interactively in this. I can highlight the areas that I'm interested in. I see here that the trend, for example, automatically calculates again, and I see here the different categories in the survey, and of course also different questions, and can now analyze the data with filters and splits. And we can then drill deeper into details. If I would be responsible for a specific country or state, I can have a look at California, for example, and see then here a map is not important anymore. I have a few stores that I'm responsible for. I see their top values, and of course this can be created a little bit differently, and see here highlighted what areas are really rated negative, and those are the ones I should have a closer look at. Yeah, and we can of course drill this further down to a single store and create other analytics. Let's maybe have a last look at the single store to review how a store manager who has maybe 5 minutes time during the morning to double check the data from his or her store. And we see here a focus on the questions themselves. And we see also here highlighted in red that here feedback about the store cleanliness is not that great. That gives me something directly operational. I can talk with the team, give them the advice, hey, clean the fitting room area a little bit more often, and we might improve customer experience directly here in our area that we can control. And we also see here a line that indicates a benchmark, a comparison against the company overall. So I can see that even I have here a little bit negative results, other stores and overall the company even has results that are more negative. So relative to the people company, I'm actually doing a quite good job to keep my customers happy for what I can do. Yeah, and this is the example for customer experience, how this can be measured and what initiatives can be started. Of course, there's a much broader feedback landscape possible, but People Company also has a research program. So as said, they launched an outdoor brand and they want to understand a little bit more in detail how the brand is perceived and if the new products really fit into the market. For that, they created a market research panel. And I again switch the portal here. And I also switch personas. I'm now logged in as a customer of People Company. And I purchased outdoor products. People Company decided to invite me, maybe with a QR code after purchasing something in the store or online, to scan this and join a profile survey. It asked me to join this panel. And I said yes, because I like the products, but I'm getting here a reward. I get bonus points I can collect and maybe get a voucher from a People Company. Behind this is our panel management module that allows People Company to manage a wide set of master data to learn more from their customers over time. So you can start with a basic profile, and then with each survey, you learn more about the interest. You can store this and you can reutilize this to target the customers with specific surveys. In the background runs automatic segmentation processes for rules that People Company and all users can define to say, for example, am I interested in electric bikes? And I said, yeah, it's something interesting, but I don't have one. And People Company actually invited me for this reason to a discussion about electric bikes, mountain biking. And there's an expert maybe logging in. I only see this card because People Company thinks that this is a topic that is interesting for me. Other people who said, I already have an electric bike, or I don't really care, they would not see this. They would be maybe invited to other discussions and other surveys. And let's have a look at this. And yeah, do I like it more traditional or with electric support? So depends a little bit on how steep the mountain is, I guess. And then there's an expert going in and a person posting something, and I can engage also here in a little bit of qualitative discussion. Of course, in addition, I can participate in surveys, and here the same rule applies, that I only see the surveys that are meant for me, that fit for my interests and my product interests. And yeah, I can go through this. And also here, of course, we have our sophisticated survey module that allows the user to create complex surveys. Yeah, and as said, People Company designed here a portal also around product tests and campaign testing, and also gives me some prizes at the end. So I can get bonus points. I can maybe win something. And here People Company announced the last winners, which is a nice thing to communicate, of course, and would invite me then to more discussions and keeps me engaged with that. And on the same end has then in the background potentially analytics set up to understand really the product interest and the preferences that I have as a customer. Yeah, and that I think concludes the customer experience and research case that People Company has implemented. And back to you, Nicola.
Okay. So what we've tried to do over the last hour and 15 minutes is really demonstrate the capabilities of Tivian's Intelligence Experience Management Platform and showcase how organisations like People Company can use this single platform to manage all of their employee experience, customer experience and market research needs.